Okay, dividend provision. Dividend provision can get a little bit confusing, so I may confuse myself while I explain this one. So dividend provision is essentially one of the preferences that preferred stock shareholders have, that common stock shareholders do not, or sometimes do not in this case. This is the one we're going to talk about. It's dividend provision, meaning that when I invest money in a company and I become a preferred stock shareholder, as the investor, I force the company to pay me a dividend on the money that I invest. So it's a percentage of my investment that's either accrued over time or not accrued over time. And that's an important difference. The one accruing over time is referred to as a cumulative dividend, and not accruing a dividend over time is referred to as non-cumulative dividend. So essentially I pick a percentage annually, and in this case, to make the math easy, I've said if there's a $5 million investment and it's a 10% dividend, which would be fairly onerous, that means $500,000 a year in dividends I'm accruing. Now, again, important to understand cumulative and non-cumulative. If it's cumulative, that means every single year I'm accruing $500,000. If it's non-cumulative, the company has to choose, the board of directors has to vote whether or not to pay that dividend in the time period over which it's accrued. So, for that given year, I have a $500,000 dividend. If the board says it's not in the company's best interest to pay it, then they don't, and it disappears, and you go on to the next year. Non-cumulative means that that 500 grand just stacks up until it eventually gets paid. So let's look at company favorable versus investor favorable, and then we'll kind of talk about the math. So a company favorable situation would of course be no dividend. The company doesn't want to pay the investors a dividend, but since the dividend provision is fairly common in these investment rounds, company favorable would be non-cumulative, meaning that every year it doesn't stack up. I just pay it if I can, and if I can't, I don't. If the board decides that that company can't pay it, we won't. An investor favorable version would be a cumulative, stacks up over time, and of course you have to pay all of the preferred stock dividends first before any of the common stockholders get any dividends if they have a dividend provision. Most of the time, if it's not a public company, common stock shareholders will not have a dividend provision. So really it's just this thing will accumulate over time. So let's look at the math a little bit about how this might work. Essentially, you've got common stock shareholders owning this percentage of the company, preferred stock shareholders owning this percentage of the company, and over time I end up accruing a dividend, and if it is cumulative, then I have to pay, when I go to sell the company for whatever value this is, I have to pay the dividend, so the common stock shareholders actually get less than what was agreed upon at the end of the funding round. This has some important implications. Number one is, if I'm just accruing this dividend over time as a preferred stock shareholder, I can continue accruing dollars of value until we go to sell the company and the common stock shareholders don't have any value left because my dividend has washed them out. What's more likely to happen in this case is that this will accrue over time, and it serves as a motivating force for the entrepreneurs or for the owners of the company to get it done, to grow the company to a point where they sell it, because you don't want this dividend accruing over time. If it's non-cumulative, it's not as big of a deal because it'll just be a set amount. But essentially, the dividends are a way that preferred stock shareholders can make a little extra money on the sale of the company and also motivate the company to move toward a sale.